All right, it being 6:01, I'd like to call the Senior Center Building Committee to order. First we'll have roll call. Diane Allen told me she would not be here tonight. Jack Holloway.
Here.
Teresa Manganelli.
Here.
Terry Masiello.
Here.
Paul Malorani.
Here.
Willa Maselli. Not here. Dan Palada's here, and Jeff Hall is here. All right, thank you very much. Everybody, you should have received the minutes for August 17th. Had a chance to review them. Any discussion? Look
No.
for approval.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented for August 17th.
I have a motion to approve by Teresa Manganelli. Do I have a second?
A second. Go ahead, Paul.
Second by Terry Masiello. Vote to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you very much. Dan, we want to have a discussion on the budget.
We do have a little bit of discussion on the budget. Prior to the last meeting, did I just hand you that?
No.
Oh, okay. At the last meeting, I handed out a budget. We did revise a couple of cells that had an addition error to our favor, and the overall appropriation ask from that exercise was 17,129, and I think we said it was 17,223 or something like that. So 231. So 120. You made $120,000. You didn't have to do anything. So that's always good. So we did correct it, give it to Jeff, and Lee graciously put it into the PowerPoint, which you all received post-meeting. So if you look at your post-meeting budget, it's slightly different than the one I handed out to you in the meeting. Okay?
Any discussion? Questions? No? All right, also I failed to recognize Lee Morissette from Dietz. He's remote. He's going to be doing his presentation tonight on value engineering. Lee, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. With me today is Alma Crawford Mendoza. The two of us have been working together with our cost estimator to put together a number of options for discussion tonight in the interest of bringing the project somewhat closer to the anticipated budget. Spoilers, I'm going to start off with the bad news that we didn't get all the way back down to 13 million, but based on the discussions we had in our last meeting, we kind of knew that was unlikely. Just the same, we owe it to you to try and come up with some options for some cost savings. So we have a presentation to give tonight, and I would actually like to give it over to Alma to do much of the talking because she's been doing the hard work of figuring out the numbers and working with the cost estimator. So, would you like me to run the PowerPoint and you talk, or do you want to do both?
You can do both.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I think you can just share your screen. You should have access.
Firstly, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Can everyone see that all right?
Yes.
Looks great.
Okay. Okay.
Am I in anyone's way? Do you need me to move? You good?
Right, so the past 2 weeks, I've been working back and forth with our cost estimator to see what are some items that we can just sort of focus on that could save money. If basically, is there something that we could replace with another thing that could save money? So that's mainly what you'll see, and the focus is more on, tried to focus less on site elements this time because the last meeting we had some ideas of site elements that we could reduce. So we tried to look more at the building this time to see what elements there possibly could be pared down. So firstly, this discussion, sort of value engineering as well as alternates. We're going to refer to it as alternates because that's how it's referred to on the cost estimate. So when they break it down for us, they'll either call something an alternate or a deduct alternate. So an alternate or add alternate is not included in the total construction cost and will be an additional fee on top of the total cost. And then the deduct alternate are items that are included in the total cost but are tagged for removal, and they would be in order of preference, basically. I think we touched on this a little in the last meeting of how you sort of number them on which one would you choose first. And once you start construction, you need to follow that order in which you first chose the items. So are there any questions firstly about the difference between an add alternate and a deduct alternate?
Yeah, do you mind? I mean, I like the alternate exercise, but we're about 2 cycles away from worrying about alternates, and I tend to want to look at these as either in the base or not in the base, period. And we'll deal with alternates when we're at, 50% CD, which is construction documents. So, if estimates come in and we're tracking better, we can start adding these things in. But I look at each one of these as an item that can literally be in or out at this point in time for the appropriation budget. And we'll tally up where we are in the appropriation budget based on what items are in and out. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay.
Meaning that the generator, for example, should, for purposes of the appropriation decision, should be made to either add that to the total and seek an additional sum, or to not
Right.
include it.
Exactly. If we know that the bidding climate is exciting, and we may get some lower bids and some higher bids, and if we have a bid that's lower, we know that we can always add it back. So that's where it becomes an alternate. Right now, from an appropriation standpoint, does the town want a generator? Is that a need? Answer yes or no. If the answer is yes, we add $180,000 into the budget. If the answer is no, we don't. Same with anything on this list. If you don't want fiberglass windows, we don't deduct $33,089. We move to the next item. So every item on this list is really up to you guys as to what you want to bring forward to the finance committee and the town meeting as in the budget. So if someone stood up at town meeting, what are the windows made out of? The windows made out of aluminum, they're high-quality thermal break windows. That's in the budget. If we took the fiberglass alternate, we'd stand up and say, they're fiberglass. So that's where we are at this point in time with all 15 of these. All right?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So just bear in mind that I will be referring to them as add alternates throughout the presentation, or deduct, just because that's how they were written on the estimate.
That's
But
fine.
you can just consider them alternates in general. So Dan just mentioned part of this, one of them being the emergency generator, and that being called an add. So as he said, if you chose to include that, that would be roughly $180,000. That goes along with the BDA and the DAS system are marked as, if you choose it, that's how much it'll be additional onto the total construction cost.
So, one more stop here. Alma, you'll be on a roll in a second. Do you want to go through these one by one? Or do you
Well-
want to go through them all and go back?
This particular one, I had a question on
Yeah,
for
that's a
the
good
bidirectional amplifier or antenna, which is the BDA. That is something that needs to be tested, so,
Well, that's why I wanted to know if you want to go through them, because I would say number one's out, and if we need to add it in, it comes out of contingency.
I'm just gonna try to move this so that you can see the money a little. See what happens when we put it down there. Okay, so that, if for the people at home,
Yep.
yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's why I wanted to know if you wanted to do 1, 2, 3, 4, have a run through them all, we go back.
Yeah, so, no, I'm.
Your
fine
call.
with it. Yeah, no, I'm fine if you want to just go through it that way.
I think we just do one at a time and decide whether you want to do them.
That would be the best way to go through it.
So,
Okay, and if I may interrupt one more time, I just want to introduce John Hammer. You remember John from SLR, he's our landscape architect. He's joining us because there are a lot of site things included today, and since we're going through them one by one, he's available for expert commentary. I'll stay out of your way, Alma. It's all yours. Thanks, John.
so Elmo, we'll start with number 1, which is the BDA.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can you refresh my memory what that is?
That's a
Okay.
bidirectional amplifier, that's for life safety, for communications through the buildings, so the fire department and police can communicate through radio, so there's no dead spots or spots that can't be picked up.
the ninth
So that's
edition,
why-
the 9th edition of the building code requires us, after we have the sheetrock up on the walls, to test radios in the building and signal in the building to make sure that the first responders can transmit and receive clearly. If they,
So if that
example,
passes,
you don't
for
need it.
example, the smaller buildings on single levels is usually not too much of an issue, but when you get to buildings like the high school or the middle school, multiple levels, concrete walls, steel structure, that interferes a lot with the radio signal. So,
This would seem to be something that we would want to include, at least at this stage, and then as we
I
get to
think
the
the
point-
best thing to do for this, just my opinion, would be not to include it, but add it as part of the contingency if it's needed. It needs to be tested one way or the other. Correct me, Dan, if I'm wrong.
Well, you can put it in without testing, but that's just throwing taxpayer money away.
Right, so if you include it, if we test it and it's needed, it can come out of the contingency, that's built into the job. But if you add it in now, it's already gonna be included, and if it's not needed, it's already included in the job.
So if we
if you-
add it in, then it's actually going to be built in and installed, so that's.
Right.
Right, I guess what I'm saying is we should include it, add it to the total budget, because we may need it.
I would say,
I would bet
Yeah, I would beg to
90%
differ.
chance it won't be needed.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, don't include it, it's a very minimal, it's 47,000.
We don't have 40,000 left in our contingency, and we're done with this job, then we're not doing very well. Yeah, I'll get fired again.
Yeah, no, that's kind of my thought, so, does everybody understand what I'm saying on that?
No, I agree. I understood what Jeff was saying. But now that I'm understanding that we don't want to have it in there and be
Most likely not
indebted to
needed.
it, and there's a chance we're not going to need it, so why
It's a
complicate
single
it?
level structure.
Small enough money.
One of the reasons, I'm not a big BDA fan. Number one, it ties into the fire alarm system, makes the fire alarm system a lot more complicated, because they have to walk in and see that the BDA is working. Number two, it's frequency specific, so we have to get the frequency of Wilmington's police radios and fire radios, and literally get an amplifier that's to those frequencies. And if you change those frequencies, someone has to change the BDA, and frequencies change every 2 to 3 decades. Some regionalization occurs, or new technology comes out and it's a different bandwidth. And if we can avoid it, I'd avoid it. If we can't, we can't. But I mean, it's a wood frame structure. I have no doubt, single-story wood frame structure, we're going to do really well, unless there's no signal in that part of town. And I find it hard to believe that, if the radios work here, they're going to work higher up there.
If it's needed, we'll put it in.
Yeah. We won't have a choice.
You won't have a choice. I
No.
mean,
We'll
I'm
find
all
the-
for,
we'll find the money.
helping out.
Yeah.
So it'll just be taken out of contingency, which we believe there's ample money to do that.
Correct. 10%. Contingency will be 5% of the project. We'll use about 2%.
generator.
I'm happy with a consensus. If you want to vote everyone, you
I think
can.
a
A consensus is fine. I mean,
I say leave it out.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine, leave it
all
out.
right. So we're gonna leave out the BDA, Lee, but put the conduit in for it. All right?
Will do. Thank you.
The next is the generator.
A question on this generator, the size, now, is this generator at 180,000 anticipated to do just minimal services in the building, or is it a majority of the building? And my thought on that, is it refrigeration, life safety, and some lighting? Or is it gonna be heating and be able to operate this whole building, seeing that most of it's electric?
The short answer to this is that we have to do a little bit more investigation. Our understanding is it's the basic services you described, refrigeration, emergency lighting, and just the emergency services at 100 amps. It's probably not the whole building. What we want to do is right-size it in design development. So kind of like how the contingency made up for the other BDA system. We can either hold 180 right now with an understanding that 100 amps covers basic services plus a little bit more than life safety, and then begin to right size it based on cost estimates moving forward, whether you really want the entire building on it, or if you want just some more of the building, if you know what I'm saying.
You mean 100 kW?
Yes, sorry.
Right, so, I mean, knowing Reading Lights away is pretty reliable here, we don't lose power a lot. I mean, if it's just for refrigeration, you keep it closed. But, I don't know everybody's thought on that. Do we want to have a generator that's almost $200,000? Now, mind you, that also requires, you know, the weekly function testing, it's self-testing it runs, and then the maintenance of this generator. And it's going to need gas.
Well, it's gonna need gas if it's a gas generator.
Right.
If it's a diesel generator, it's gonna need a delivery. Again, the gas company's not gonna give us a free gas service.
If you go diesel, then
Just put in a generator.
you have to deal with EPA regulations on a number 2 diesel fuel generator.
Yeah, but it's not as bad as you think.
We've dealt with it on other
Big ones,
on bigger ones, yes.
How are we heating the building?
electric,
No gas coming to the site?
no gas comes to the site.
Well, we don't know if the kitchen equipment will necessarily need gas. We haven't specifically spec'd out all electric induction units for the kitchen. If we do an all-electric commercial kitchen, it will be a little bit more expensive for all the cooking equipment because they'll have to be induction. It's probably more cost-effective with gas. Again, that'll be explored more during design development.
This is a tough one. I mean, this truly is a tough one. This is a policy question. What do you want your center to be? Do you want your center to have a backup, or is it, you know, like a school? The school goes, you know, school goes down, the kids go home. It's a simple policy question.
I guess my concern is, if the lights go out, people are gonna wanna go home. So I don't think people are gonna wanna stay.
Well, the lights will stay on for 8 hours. There'll be emergency circuits that stay
Okay.
on for 8 hours.
And,
I do have to play a little devil's advocate to this.
My question, Terry, you've been the director for how long?
Yes.
Power outages, how have they affected?
Power outages have not affected the senior center, but the senior center has been a place to go for people to, if there's been like a small outage in a very small area, say a corner pocket like Lawrence Street, and a couple of those streets, they come to the senior center.
But the power would
But the
still-
power would stay on. Again, that's in the current area that we're in.
Our
so-
middle school is set up for an emergency shelter.
Correct. Yep, the middle school.
So if the entire town lost power, that's where they would go, to the middle school.
But it's just as, my only question is, are the refrigerators and with these new refrigerators that would be going in, I don't know, is there any backup with them when lights do go out? I don't know what the
No, you keep
schools that
them
you have.
closed, same as the schools that don't have at the Woburn Street, the West Intermediate, the Shawshene. they don't have a emergency power or backup, you leave the freezer doors shut and hope for the power to come back on within a reasonable time.
Okay.
If I may make a comment at this time, I don't usually strongly advocate for these kind of choices because I really do feel it is the decision of the committee. But I'd like to point out a couple of issues that this building is designed to serve. To Terry's point, it is designed to be a cooling center and a warming center in extreme weather conditions. Those extreme weather conditions usually happen around storms or involve storms in some way, either in the winter as a result of a storm or at about the same time as the storms in the summer. And this building is meant to be a resource for at-risk communities. And a generator absolutely underscores that ability. Additionally, this is a particularly easy, not simple, but easy way to address the climate change that we're seeing. Summers are going to get hotter, winters are going to be more extreme. This is a way to build in resiliency into your building and give it a longer lifespan throughout the day and hopefully long term. It's a way to get more out of your investment. It's a way to make sure that it's available to the people who really need it when they're at risk. So I would encourage you to consider continuing the generator as part of your budget, and we'll just figure out what size makes sense during construction, during design development.
Well,
To
that's
piggyback on Lee, on the civil side, we have shown a gas line servicing the building and a gas line servicing the generator from the street. It's on our utility plan, and the estimate includes that service on the civil side of the estimate. So,
John, it does, but it doesn't include the mitigation fee we're gonna get from the gas company. You know, when the building has gas for primary heat, we don't get a mitigation fee. When we do a generator only, they charge us a hefty sum to tie into Route 38, Route 38. So, I mean, and if you're showing two, that's even double the fun. So, I mean,
we're only showing one service connection at the street to the building, and then a line from the generator to the building.
oh, okay.
So we at least accounted for the possibility of gas being to the building, so that the estimator would include the cost for the meter, the service, and the connection out in the street. And in the estimate on page 20 of 20, it's in 335000 gas services, trench for news gas pipe, gas meter for $3,500. So it's not a lot, but he does have it in there.
George, my concern is that we don't know how big a generator we need in order to provide the services that Lee mentioned, and I think he made an excellent point. So could that be twice what we're looking at here? I mean,
Well, we could consider it an add alt, and maybe when we go to D&D, just for an idea for this, maybe we carry this.
I'm kind of torn because I'm thinking of this as an emergency shelter at some point, but when we say heating and cooling, it's not an emergency shelter at that point. It's just a,
Right, when we use it for cooling, it's in the summer months, obviously, when
Yeah.
people don't have air conditioning in their home,
Right.
they will come to the shelter.
yeah, and even, who knows what's going to happen in the future with the grid and brownouts and things like that. So,
Right.
I mean, that's a potential too. But
The, one thing, I'll put my Reading Light hat on, one thing they do, they consider is shred the peak when they're trying to work with the communities to cut during peak demand. They reach to communities that have buildings on generators so they can turn them on for a certain period of time, trying to help, shred that peak. But
how difficult, George, is this to add after the fact?
So, in Ludlow, we added it after the fact.
I mean, like
We had
3 years.
$500,000 left over in Ludlow, and we did it after the fact. Was it easy? No. We still haven't gotten the generator. The project's been completed for 14 months. So, we're still waiting on the generator. But we did, during the construction, put in the transfer switch, the conduits, and made it ready to go.
You wanna
There we did diesel, so we didn't have to have a gas service.
You want to be able to do power distribution, plan for that.
A gas,
so when
a
you have your
gas
panels in
service,
place.
a gas service for a generator to run this entire building is gonna be a hefty gas service.
Does it have to be a gas service? Can you put a bottle in there?
Propane?
Propane? Yeah, I mean, you could, but
You
it's gonna,
could.
it's gonna suck up a lot of fuel, if you go with gas. And you get more efficiency out of the diesel generators. I'm not pushing you one way or the other.
Yeah.
I just don't, I think you have to have I think that the town has to have the decision on what you want. What do you want? Do you want, if you want it only for lights and freezes, we already can have battery backup for lights, and you just don't open the freezers and you're gonna get 8 hours.
And the other thing is cooking equipment. I
Yeah,
mean,
cooking equipment's a good point by Lee, no question about it. So, I mean, this is a policy question. What do you want your senior center to be?
So to the question of electric, and I recall that we had some discussion about this before, but what is the premise to be running this building on electric? Isn't that typically the most expensive way to?
So, electric uses the least amount of energy,
Right.
all right, per therm. It's only more expensive on an annualized basis because electricity costs more in New England than it does the rest of the country.
Right.
But it generates the least amount of impact on the use of energy.
Okay.
I mean, if you use gas and electric, you're using more energy. If you're using all, you know what I'm saying? If you have a hybrid. Although the gas is a lot cheaper, this is a carbon-free building.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if electricity's coming from a hydro in Canada, you're not affecting the earth. I mean, that's basically one of the benefits. The other benefit is the VRF system is extremely efficient in the swing seasons. It's bad in the peak winter and it's bad in the peak summer, but in the swing seasons, it's incredibly efficient, way more efficient than gas and a gas-fired system.
natural gas is a little bit more cheaper than propane, obviously.
Yep.
And the delivery system is continuous. You don't have to have it delivered to a truck, so
Right.
wintertime, storms, you don't have to depend on
We've been
delivery.
converting buildings now for a number of years from oil to
Oil
gas.
to gas, correct. Yeah.
But
If I may jump in just to say that the discussion of the building being an all-electric building with the kitchen as a variable was part of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing discussion that happened months ago.
Right.
Okay.
Based on the cost-benefit analysis of the systems and their variability and customization. And so this is just a result of that, and we're kind of seeing the impacts of like not necessarily having gas service all the way to the building. However, to John Hammer's point, it is estimated into the project right now to provide that flexibility. And I do think that this is something we can really get into the details of during design development, and that we don't necessarily have to say absolutely yes or absolutely no to the generator right now. I'm sorry to undermine you, Dan. I know you're trying to get yeses and nos, but if we rule out the generator at this point, it gets more and more difficult to include. If we keep it in, then we provide ourselves that flexibility. And to the point of the Ludlow example, they kept the generator in conceptually all the way to the end, even though they didn't actually buy the generator, because they bought all of the equipment to make it happen and had a plan on how that would work. We can do that too. So there's a lot of flexibility. This isn't an all or nothing.
I agree with that.
I like that idea.
But that approach, your approach, Lee, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, you don't need to add the 180 in if you take that approach. So the 180 does not necessarily have to go into the appropriation, and we deal with it as we're going along with savings that we've accumulated. The 180 is not enough, not even remotely enough, for this building size. And John, $3,500 to take a trench from this building into the middle of Route 38 won't cover the police details. So, I mean, I just think there's more to it than meets the eye. And I think if you say go with the generator, we'll work on getting an accurate generator. Then you're gonna decide full building generator or partial service generator. I mean, if you wanna air condition just the multi-purpose room, yeah, we could probably do a lot smaller a generator.
Or just the dining room area.
That's what I mean, the multi-purpose.
Yeah.
This keeps ringing my head. I keep hearing, it's better to have and not need,
Right.
to have this in there. So I'm thinking kind of move forward with this generator, and then when we go design development, we can talk about size.
So add the 180 in.
I would think so. My opinion, of course.
I agree.
Well, when you say add in, we're still, it would be considered as a add alt.
No, we're saying add it in.
I
So we're either adding this to the appropriation or we're not. We're not ready to do alternates.
This is not in the 17,129 number.
That is not in the 17,129 number.
But we did save 120,000, so this really is just an additional 60.
Speaking like a true finance committee member.
I appreciate.
Okay,
In or out?
I'd leave it in.
Leave it in?
That's my vote.
In. Put one in Lee's column.
I get this one, Alma. Yeah. I do want, just as a program note, there are 17 deducts to go through. So I'm not hurrying anyone. I just want to give you a preview of how many things we have to work through.
Okay,
And so,
But
Alma, floor is yours.
what we have to
keep
do.
going.
Just before we go, I don't want to delay things, but I do think we need to have a discussion about what is the intent of this building? Is it going to be an emergency center, or what is the function, as Dan said? And that's not a discussion for tonight, but we need to, from a policy standpoint, at some point in the next few months, before we have to make the tough call, I guess, what is this going to serve as? If it's not going to be an emergency center, and we don't believe it's necessary to have a generator to keep the refrigerators going, because typically we don't get, extended periods of power outages, then maybe we don't need it. But
I would
that's
like to
it.
help with this conversation if I can. Would it help you as a committee if we put together a short memo between the mechanical engineer and ourselves describing what we understood the charge to be for the building? Because we've made a lot of incremental decisions that have been pushed in a particular direction because of our understanding. And we want to clarify a couple of things, that it's not an emergency shelter. And I know that seems like an inflammatory statement, but police stations and hospitals are emergency shelters. This is a
Warming center.
shelter.
Warming
all
center.
that kind of stuff. I think it might help if we said, here's what we were thinking, and here's where the design currently sits, and then you can respond to that. Would that be beneficial?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Please.
Okay, we'll get that for you right away.
It's in for now.
It's got an asterisk.
That's fine.
Go to number 3.
Okay, next one is windows, and 4 is also windows. So these are two options of other material windows that you can choose that save money. This one is UPVC. Comparatively, if you chose this over aluminum, it would be roughly $77,000 less. And the
Stick with the
next
aluminum
option
windows.
is the fiberglass, which is roughly $33,000 compared to the aluminum. So those are two options to pick from if that's something that interests you in saving money for the windows.
I say my thought on this is stay with the aluminum windows with the thermal break for the lifetime of the building. This is the type of window system you want to go with. Dan, I mean, you can correct me.
Yeah,
if
I respectfully agree.
I'm- Any other discussion
I mean,
on?
I'll
So
provide
the-
your recommendation.
The aluminum,
Longer
the aluminum,
term, we're gonna
in the old
be-
days, the aluminum would transfer heating and cold right through the aluminum. When you were a kid, you touch it and it would be cold. Today, the aluminum comes as two pieces with a piece of resinous fiberglass in between that prevents that window from actually being, to transfer that therm through there. So it's a really good system. I know he's gonna have a good window design, and I think we should stick with the aluminum. I'm with George on that one.
So the longer-term cost is going to be less by sticking with what we have on the docket here as opposed to these modifications, right? I mean, it does seem to make sense that we have to look at the long-term consequence.
Agree?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Next.
Number 5.
Okay, moving on.
It's easier than the
Number
generator.
5, we talked about this a little last meeting. This is just purely take the pergola out for this part of the construction. We talked about that it could potentially happen afterwards, once the building's finished, separate budget. But this is just a number that you can see of how much that would save if that was not built at all.
I have a question.
Yep.
This pergola, is this different than the pergola over the bocce court?
It's the same one.
Same one.
Because I saw two different,
This is the
Six
one
card.
at the bocce court.
okay.
Can I also ask, what is the size of this pergola? That the goal, I couldn't determine that size.
I'll have an answer for you in a second. Well, in a minute.
He's calculating on CAD.
Thank you, John. I was just about to start guessing.
So I have
Yeah,
a
me too.
pergola for A5 is $52,000, but then I see the pergola on line 83 is at $38,000. Am I missing something there?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the extra would be the foundation for
Okay.
that pergola as well. So that's
Okay.
including everything that would be needed to get that little structure completed.
Thank you.
Well, we're gonna be taking down a lot of the trees on the property, because it seems there's a lot of trees around there, and you probably don't need a pergola to always shade.
they're scrub pines.
40 feet,
40 feet?
40-foot long pergola.
That's-
My thought on this, again, is the foundation for the pergola's gotta be done, and then you want something that's going to be built correct. It's not gonna be an afterthought or come in after the fact. So you want those footings in there correctly, so for that amount, I'm in favor of keeping this in.
I think it's crucial as to, I'm sorry, in my opinion, how the back is designed, and if people are at the bocce court, it's not like you're close to the building, so there is need for shade
Yeah.
and for them to be able to sit. So I do agree with George that I see that there is a need just where everything is.
And
Oh, I still have a question. I'm sorry. Lee, could you tell me how wide it is? So it's 40 feet long. How deep is it?
You think, John, about 12 feet?
12 feet long?
Right.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
Wait for it,
Uh,
about 12
20.
feet deep.
12 feet.
right.
Wow, perfect.
My feeling is for this kind of money, we should just put it in, not have to worry about it, not have to deal with it. I want it to look really nice. It's going to be a focal point of that back area.
In. Okay, A5's in.
Before we go any farther, I did have a memo here from one of our other committee members. I was going to save it for a different portion here under our comments, but where we're voting on this stuff, I feel that I should read it, just so people understand what one of our other committee members had. This was from Diane. She is on vacation this week. She was unable to attend, but she wanted her opinion to be heard on these. A general comment on the overall project spreadsheet. She found it to be a little confusing, to be included in the feasibility phase of the budget and proposed construction phase. She took a look at it and finally figured it out. She said her comments on the phase budget was to keep the 4 pickleball courts. She recommends no substantial change in the proposed budget. Regarding the alternates 3 and 4 on the windows, she relies on the recommendation of the chair. 5 for the pergola, she would not elect to remove this. The generator, she would support this item.
She's batting 1,000.
And the BDA system, her thought, the understanding was at the last meeting, this decision will be made during testing when the building was under construction. She thinks that we should include it in the proposed budget. If not needed, we can deduct it from the construction costs, but no, I don't think we can do that, so I think if we explain that part to her, and that's all she had. That was from Diane, committee member Diane Allen.
That's good. All right, so pergola stays?
I'm fine, pergola? Okay.
6.
Great. Next one, this one's a little more complex, so bear with me. So this is talking about the exterior walls and what is the insulation outside of the wood studs. And currently, we were proposing mineral wool, and that is accompanied with plywood and air vapor barrier. So it's a 3-part process of putting those 3 layers up. So there's also a product called zip sheathing. It is a 3-in-1 product where you get all of that in one. It's sort of, it reduces the amount of work needed to put that up because it's just, you're literally just putting 1 layer up on studs. And so this is just something, it's, I would say, relatively popular right now, especially in multifamily housing. I think because of cost and because of how quickly it can go up, which saves cost. So this option, this is sort of the value of that if you used one over the other. If you use the zip sheathing instead of the mineral wool system, this is the potential savings of what that would look like.
My thought on this, you hit upon people are putting up because it's quicker. You know, it's faster, it cuts down on labor. The thing that I like about the mineral wool is the R factor, the insulation, the savings that we're gonna get, the sound attenuation that it provides to the building. And, I mean, you're gonna have that moisture barrier and everything in place. I think over time, that money that we're gonna save during construction, as opposed to this zip board that you put in, it will not stand the same test of time that the mineral wool will have, plus just in the R factor alone. Dan, you've built a lot of these, so.
I have to tell you, I think I've gone through this exercise on every single project I've ever done. And I'm split on this. And I actually talked to George today, and I said, George, I really don't want to go the zip panel. But the zip panel will last as long as the 3/4-inch plywood. I guess what I want to know is, what is the insulation replacement? Because the zip panels are just a piece of denser grade plywood with a moisture barrier built into the exterior. You're not thinking of doing a sandwich board.
This is the Zip
You are.
R12 system, so
Okay.
this comes with basic rigid insulation attached to
Polyisocyanate.
plywood, attached to a vapor barrier.
So you're doing
Um,
polyisocyanate for the insulation.
Yeah, so it's their thickest product. They have 3 different options of I think R6, R9, R12. So this is their thickest, highest insulative value that you could get from this product.
So
So it's R12 instead of R16, just to answer your question directly. The mineral wool, well, actually, no, I'm sorry, we were We were actually drawing 3 inches of mineral wool, weren't we, Alma? It's the same. It's the
So
same.
what, but you have the mineral, it looks like is the mineral wool on the outside of the building?
Yes, it is.
And then you were covering that with what, plywood?
No. No,
Going
the
over-
systems that, the systems that Alma is showing are exactly what we're talking about. The one on the left, you put the plywood up first, cover it with a vapor barrier, whether it's a sheet or a spray or whatever, and then you put the mineral wool on top of that, and directly over that goes our hardy plank system.
All right, because what they're showing is something a little bit different. I'm wondering if, what I'd like to do is kind of like a hybrid of this. If we could get rid of the AVB by using zip and using mineral wool, I think we can get the best of both worlds. Because the AVB is like a peel and stick that they put on the side of the buildings and they caulk the joints. You see it, sometimes
Yeah.
it's blue, sometimes it's yellow. You'll see it on the high rises. It is wicked expensive to put on. And it's a file sub bidder to boot. If we can eliminate the file sub bidder, I'll be praying to the Lord above. Because I think we could save, I think we'll save more than 78,000 just eliminating the AVB, to be honest with you. So, but I'd ask you to come back to us with that and just take a quick look at that and see if we can do a hybrid of it. Maybe the zip,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah.
Maybe a polyisocyanate that we can apply and then put the zip over it or whatever, however you want to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Or the mineral wool and the zip on top of it.
You guys good, Jack?
You guys all right with that? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I really appreciate the conversation and your suggestion, Dan. This is absolutely something we're going to investigate thoroughly in DD and get you more information on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of building science here that we don't need to go into tonight, but these are both robust systems, and I think there's a path forward as we're discussing tonight.
Seven.
Okay, continuing with an insulation discussion, this is a lower number that you could gain from this, but this is replacing what is inside the studs. So we're still talking about exterior studs, but what is within those, in between the vertical members, and that we had as dense packed cellulose in our first estimate, and we wanted to see what is the difference if we had mineral wool inside the studs instead. This is how much that would save.
What's the R factor of the consideration here? So,
Same R factor?
Lee, can you speak more to the difference between the two?
Mineral wool insulation, whether it's inside the building or outside the building, is about R4 per inch, and so we're talking R16 between the studs. Dense packed cellulose is a little less effective, but it's pretty darn close. It's really a sequencing issue as much as anything. So the R factor is pretty equivalent. There's a lot more building science there about time and sag and all that kind of stuff, but we don't need to get into that. For the purposes of this discussion, not a huge savings.
What was the last part, the purpose of this
Not a
discussion?
huge savings.
Not a huge savings.
6 one way, half dozen the other. You guys, in or out?
5,000 on a $17 million building.
And this very well may come up further along when we get a CM on board. If we choose to do a CM, they may have suggestions to say, if we change the insulation type from mineral wool to fiberglass, we can save, these compounding factors of labor and installation and sequencing, and we'll see much better gains in that discussion than this switch out. I think it's a good exercise to investigate. I was hoping there'd be a little bit more to talk about, but it ends up being almost a wash.
Leave it in.
Yeah.
Leave it.
Thank you, Alma.
Okay. Next item, number 8. This is referring specifically to the stone base that goes around the entire building. This is not including any stone base around the columns or the stone that is going full height next to the entry door. So this price is for if you replace that stone base, and it also had a cast stone cap that was on top of that. You replace that with a fiber cement panel and a cellular PVC top trim. What would the savings be? This is the total amount for that.
Do you have any illustrations of that?
I don't even want to go down this path because this, lawnmower hits the fiber cement panels, they're gonna crack.
Right, and then it's,
It's just, yeah, it'll save us money, but you're gonna be looking at a hodgepodge of replaced panels on the base of this building after 5 years, in my opinion. As good as George is at maintaining the buildings,
I don't cut the grass.
occasionally he
I don't
doesn't cut the grass.
But, no, I have to agree. I think that we don't want to cut a corner on here.
I mean, if you want to eliminate the stone and have an exposed foundation, that's one thing. But I wouldn't put cement, I just wouldn't do it.
It's a maintenance factor, it's a curb appeal factor, I mean, it's the whole thing. You know what we're talking about here?
Sorry, George, you fade out just a little bit. Could you move your mic a little closer in? That would help a little bit.
How's that, better?
A little bit, thank you.
I think Lee's asking you to yell at him.
Yeah.
Ken?
Just confused.
So that's a no on this one?
We have a question, hold on.
Is the savings the 68.3 or the 170.8 down the bottom?
68.3.
Yeah, I can clarify what the two boxes on the screen are representing. So the red box is strictly what would the savings be if you removed the stone base and replaced it with fiber cement panel. And then the box below is showing a clip of the actual estimate and just highlighting where those elements are coming from. So it's saying, highlighting the fieldstone base, which is 2 feet high, and the cast stone cap. And those are the two items that we're saying that value is coming out. But then since you need to replace it with fiber cement panel, you don't get that total. So if you added 94 plus 37, you wouldn't get 68. But once you add in the fiber cement panel back in the top trim, it comes out to 68.
Understood?
I say leave it in.
You got it in?
Okay.
Next.
Okay, similar topic. This is strictly about the stone base around the entry columns and other columns that sort of wrap around the back of the building. We have some near the patio area. This option, and there's a photo right here of an example of what it could look like, is you remove the stone and you have this sort of raised up precast concrete base instead. And that's just a rough number of what those savings could be if you didn't have that stone wrapping around each column.
This is a good representation of the last thing we were discussing, so if you did it without, I say leave it in, it's 6,000, I mean,
Yep.
I would pay that myself, not to look at that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Paul just said he's gonna write a check at the end of the meeting. I heard that.
He's a gentleman.
I think they look good, but
10.
it's okay.
On to 10.
I bet you like Boston City Hall too.
Yeah,
I do.
I actually do too. It's an upside down penny.
oh, okay.
John wants to check out of this meeting.
It's an upside down penny. Did you ever look at a penny upside down?
yeah.
It's Boston City Hall.
This is interesting.
The
Yeah.
next one is something
Yeah.
I think we talked about a little in our last board meeting. This is referring to the concrete at the patio. And it had originally been priced to be both stamped and colored. So the left image is an example of both of what that could look like. There's many options for stamping, but this is just an example of what a stamp texture could look like and how it could be colored to be sort of variegated, have, some brown tones in there or something like that. And then comparing it to the brushed, which is just your sort of standard concrete treatment that you would see on a sidewalk. and it doesn't have a color applied to it. So that's the cost of not doing the stamped and the colored, just doing a regular brushed concrete at the back patio.
Well, I wouldn't consider this anything on a maintenance issue either way. Aesthetics, definitely. I did have a question as far as, Lee, maybe you can answer this. When it comes to ice melt or anything in the wintertime, how does that stamp kind of react as opposed to the brush? I've seen the brush get totally decimated by different types of ice melt, different products, but
If it's sealed before you start salting,
yep.
you shouldn't have that problem.
I thought you were asking about the water coming possibly off of the roof and dripping onto the.
Well, that's a good part too.
We're not gonna have that here, right? It's not gonna, right? It's
All,
guttered.
all the roof is guttered now.
Okay, so we don't have the drip problem.
Yep.
The broadcast application of de-icing salts, neither of these have one benefit over the other. Actually, I should take that back. If you do stamped and colored concrete, we would tell you that you should seal this at some frequency to maintain that. So it would be less likely to have problems than the brushed. If
Okay.
you do no treatment to either of them, they will both
Spall.
fail at the same rate.
I would caution on colored concrete. You're talking about multiple trucks, multiple colors, and honestly, it fades, it splotches. It's hard. And we did have a discussion at the last meeting. I thought we were done with this, to be honest with you. I'm surprised it's still here. That we thought it would be problematic for those with walkers.
Slippery.
Right.
Or, having trouble walking
Right.
on the stamp.
That was my next.
So I'm all for brushed. I'm all in. So I'd take the money and run, but that's just me.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree.
You just have to keep it clean, we have to just power wash it.
So just go with the brushed, save
That
yourself
is,
60.
if I can just comment quickly on that, and not to discourage you against it, but we should consider the size of that large single colored space, and we might have to do something, I don't know, it's like the size of the entire wing of the building, that area. If you look at the plan view, I don't know if you have that, I have it, but I don't know if I can screen share. It's literally the width and the depth of the entire wing of the building, and that will be essentially like looking at a floor slab, a bare floor slab of the building, and the reflectivity on that will be immense.
Don't you think that depends on how you score it and how you, you look at the picture she's showing, John. That's an immense piece of concrete there, but it's broken up with control joints, and it's broken up with a diagonal pattern. I think you guys are smart enough to find a way to make this work.
That,
I appreciate your confidence. To John's point, there is some benefit for breaking this up, but I think we also begin to discuss the benefit of reducing the patio size to save money as well. Alma, not to direct you, but I think slide 8 has a picture of the whole patio from the pergola.
We all have.
And we can talk about the overall patio size as a point of discussion as well if we want to
so there it is.
reduce that.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. I wasn't trying to say that we need to use color for that reason. I was just, to your point, we should reduce the size, do something different if we're not going to, because it's laid out now and set up for it to be colorized and stamped. If we don't do that, we should redesign it.
How dramatic would that I'm so sorry, excuse me.
No, good question.
How dramatic would that redesign be, and how dramatic would it include, because that pergola is set out, and that you would need a pathway or something to be getting to that pergola, also for safety. So what kind of reduction do you see?
Well, it's not.
Whole thing stamped,
I don't think that
all of it. I mean,
there's other ways to
yeah, no, just see this area too?
have the raised gardens
But
be
then the
on an
walkways.
accessible and
What are the walkways?
comfortable surface, like a stabilized stone dust, which has a polymer in it that is like, turns into almost like concrete, but it isn't concrete, but it looks different, so it's differentiating. And we could easily get people to the space, and we could also get from the patio to the bocce court that way. But it would sort of take down the formality of the raised garden spaces without changing their functionality or the ease of their use. So maybe we can keep it this size, but instead of using quote unquote
Yeah.
concrete, we
Didn't
could
we get rid of
use
the raised gardens?
that.
Not yet.
Last week, didn't we?
No,
eliminate
just,
them?
we just, it.
Reduce the number.
Reduced it so it's on one side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not
we're
the whole
not,
thing.
John, we're not gonna be doing that many raised gardens. I mean, we talked about at the last meeting of reducing the raised gardens maybe to the side opposite of the bocce court, where there's, enough for gardening, but not overwhelming, and giving her the ability to have events on the area where the other raised gardens are. You know?
I'm just suggesting a surface change that is still accessible and usable, it's common. It's stone dust, but it's got
Not doing stone dust.
glue in it. It works really well, and it's great for getting around. It's not at all.
Dan,
Not gonna do it.
the walkways that are adjacent to this patio, are they gonna be brushed or are they also stamped?
Brushed.
So you would have stamped and then transition to brushed, is that? Yeah, okay.
I mean, if I may offer a compromise, let us carry the brushed and we'll deal with the design and design development. We know we have enough money to do something creative with the brushed concrete, whether it's creating, wells of trees or
It's your
whatever.
thought, Terry.
Something different to
I
break
think
it
the
up.
patio's
But
needed, but
I think
talk about the finish.
spending $70,000 on stamped colored concrete is
Okay.
just a non-starter.
Actually,
That's
some ways
actually
I think
exactly
the
what I was
brush
gonna
would be
suggest.
better
Oh,
than
good.
thing,
That we
walking.
carry it for now, and then we can talk about reducing some of the planters, we can talk about reducing some of the overall footprint of the patio, and we can do more design work
Okay.
in DD. I really like what John and his team has put together, in its first, maybe second iteration, but I think there's a lot of room to continue to customize it for exactly how you want and what you can afford.
All right, I
Thank
agree.
you.
What does that translate into? Are we,
We're gonna carry it and,
No, we're taking the deduct.
We'll take the reduction and
67.7?
We're taking the deduct and we're gonna look at the design in DD. So we're taking the 67,000, looking at the design in DD. Right?
Right.
I gotta pay for that generator.
You're almost
I thought
there.
that math paid for the generator.
The math paid for 2/3, the concrete just paid for the other third.
We left you some low-hanging fruit with the colored and stamped concrete.
There you go.
That's an easy one, right?
Give it a try.
Painted bollard steel, I don't. We have painted steel, we own painted steel.
next,
Okay.
Ooh, this is the fun
These
stuff.
two numbers are for some different materials for the pickleball courts. On the surface, originally it was priced as post-tensioned concrete. So these two prices are what if it wasn't post-tensioned concrete, what if it was asphalt? And you can see that the asphalt saves a little more money than the concrete, but both are significant savings if you chose either of these.
George, what do we have out here?
I think this is asphalt out here. We did that, so.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. Yeah, what you have at the town hall is asphalt.
right. What do they typically put in place, Lee? I'm not familiar with, I mean, maybe some of the audiences as far as professional or typical pickleball courts.
I'm not gonna speak for John specifically, but I have a really good feeling that he put in, the best version, which would be professional. And then everything less than that would be, would involve some compromise of longevity or potential for settlement or all those other things. John, am I making stuff up? How am I doing?
Yes, I don't want to exclude asphalt as a product, but I want to exclude it.
Okay.
So
we,
let me.
we don't do them as asphalt if we can really at all avoid it. In parks and recs facilities for most municipalities, if there's even an inkling of hope that they can post tension them, we'll post tension them. If they just can't afford that, we still try to do them as concrete, and then you put a joint at the net, and the rest of it isn't concreted. But we're working on a couple of them right now that might be asphalt, so it's not like it doesn't happen. If you can do the post tension, you should do it. If not, everything else is going to be a question of longevity.
Okay, I know we have some members of the audience that have some questions.
The thing I did, I contacted Vermont Recreational did this. And they're gonna send me back a quote on 4 quotes, so. With that quote, they should know exactly what they put out there. But the town manager should have that.
Just, who was that?
Vermont Recreational, is the name of the company. In Vermont, obviously, and P.O. Box 147.
Well, that's the contractor, I think, that worked out here. I'm
Right.
sure we can get the information. That was a few years ago, so we'd have to account for that.
But the thing we're looking at is asphalt versus the concrete post-tension. Did you have a question?
Is he talking about Vermont Recreation?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know who they are. Yeah, them and a couple other people do. They're the main New England installers of courts, so specifically the surfacing.
So is there a surface on top of the asphalt? Is there a
Yes.
is it a rubberized?
There's a plexi coat. There's a coating that goes on top of it, and a couple of companies do those, but there's not a whole lot of them. So
Is that surface required on all 3 versions?
yes,
So it's just what the base is gonna be.
Just what the base is gonna be at.
yes.
Just an FYI, if you go with the asphalt, our appropriation goes under 17 million.
oh, Susan.
We can do them as asphalt. I mean, it can be done.
Sorry, Susan Inman, Assistant Town Manager. Is there a life cycle difference between the asphalt and the concrete? Is that why, I mean, if the surface goes on every different type of base, what are you compromising?
Yeah. John, what's the longevity comparison to both?
Post-tension concrete has a warranty for don't quote me on this, Kevin Fusilier from our office could quote, but I believe it's 25 years, maybe more for the post-tension. The concrete that isn't post-tension doesn't come with a warranty, and it's actually kind of an SLR thing. It's not everybody is doing that. And we have examples of it that you could look at that have been around. And then the asphalt shrinks, so you have to saw cut the asphalt so that as it shrinks, it doesn't tear in the cords and stuff. But there is a regimen, and the longevity of the asphalt is like everything else asphalt. It really depends on the environment that it's in.
Right.
The amount of sun that it gets, the amount of water that sits on it, what's in the base, it's wildly erratic compared to any concrete solution.
Okay. Ken, did,
I think, as we've gone through this, we tabled item number 6 because we want to get some more information on hybrid for the middle of the wool. I'd suggest tabling this one too until we can get a better idea of the quote and what we've currently got in the pickleball courts outside.
So just to caution you, if we get a quote from a vendor, that's not the estimate.
right.
So, because the quote from the vendor is not projecting out the time when this is gonna be bid and the time at which it's gonna be constructed, might not include prevailing wages for when this project goes, which will be different than it is today. And, you know, unfortunately, we have to deal with general contractor markups and all sorts of fun things.
There's significant questions regarding a 25-year lifespan on the post-tension versus no warranty at all on the asphalt.
You're still gonna have to paint them.
Right.
So we do these for a living, for what it's worth. There's one of the, he's not here right now, but Kevin Fusilier, landscape architect, and he is the guy at SLR for post-tension courts and our athletics. He's not here. I didn't think about having him come, but what I could do is I could talk to him and get back to you with an opinion on this. But we looked at the costs, and we just did tennis courts post-tensioned in Chicopee, 2 banks of them. So we have recent costs as of last year at Fairview Tennis. And Kevin has probably 4 of these ongoing right now. We do them for high schools, parks and recs facilities, anything you name.
So the other, John, are the costs in
Thinking
the
the
estimate
post-tension
representative
concrete,
of your
25-year
experience?
longevity. So,
The post-tension is, yes.
Okay.
and that's, we rely on your expertise on this. So I'm
Let me
thinking,
double back on it with Kevin and have him look at it, and I'll look
What's
at it
that?
together.
Close it out.
yeah,
Because it's important.
go with the
to-
post-tension.
We're gonna go with the post-tension. You don't need to get back to us.
Yeah. This isn't like the hybrid mineral wool thing that we're looking at. We're not gonna go out and solicit costs to see what we can get cheaper either. But the longevity, we got 25-year warranty. This is something that our designers are recommending. I would have to go with that. I'm not gonna speak for
No,
everybody.
I agree.
25-year warranty. John, you're gonna have to give the town administrator your phone number, because he's gonna call you on, he's gonna call you on year 18.
I'm texting Kevin right now.
All right.
So what are we saying here? We're not
We're going
taking any of these?
What-
Concrete
Okay.
post-tension.
Yeah, so we
We're
do.
leaving it as is.
We're not taking any deduction.
Oh, so we're staying with the 300,000?
There's three options here. Post-tension concrete, and asphalt.
But they both say post-tension.
In lieu.
Well, in lieu of, ILO, in lieu of.
Oh. Oh, all right.
So we won't
So,
take a deduction.
so if you didn't do post-tension, which is a process of
Yeah.
literally tensioning the concrete after, or just regular concrete is one, or post-tension to asphalt is the other. You can't take both.
So these 2 options on the table here, we're not going to opt for either of these,
No.
A minute.
notwithstanding that they're both post-tension?
In lieu
Yeah,
of
in lieu of.
post-tension.
In lieu of post-tension.
ILO.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
all right.
think-
So if you go with the asphalt, Jeff,
Yeah, yeah,
you're not
okay,
post-tensioning anything, you're putting asphalt on gravel,
Yep,
and you're hoping it doesn't crack.
yep.
If you go with the concrete, it's
Okay.
similar, but it's better than asphalt.
Tell them, 2 kinds of concrete.
ILO stands for in lieu.
I have another.
Yes, ILO stands for
The
in lieu
operative,
of. Sorry if you
wait.
guys were confused.
Can I ask the question too? So we have the option concrete pickleball courts in lieu of post-tension, but the original court was concrete.
But post-tension concrete.
But post-tension concrete, it's
So
a
what is
different,
the difference in the layers? So you still have a finish on the top? Is that the same for all 3 options?
yes.
So what is the difference between the 2 concretes then? What is post-tensioning?
25
So-
years warranty.
So,
It's,
I talked to
But
Kevin.
what is it, what does it mean? Like,
who wants to explain post-tensioning?
Tell them,
I'll explain it.
You want to explain it?
Yes.
Make
So-
it in English, or I'm gonna correct.
Before I do that, Kevin confirmed that it's 25 years, and within 50 years, you should only really get hairline cracks with post tensions. So the warranty is 25 years unless there's like an earthquake or whatever. So what a post tension slab
An
is,
earthquake the week after we open.
it's a parking garage slab, which means it could be helicoptered out and moved. It has cables in it that are tensioned after the concrete is poured, which prevents it from cracking, essentially, and failing. A regular just a regular concrete slab doesn't have all of those tensioners, wires, and cables in the concrete. So you're relying on, like a sidewalk, your base and drainage and other things for it to stay intact, and there's no warranty with that. But apples, if you compare that to asphalt, just the materials alone, it's clearly a superior product. So, but if you were going to do the post tension for the difference, if you were going to do concrete versus post tension at the price point you're at for the project, we would recommend doing the post tension because you get the warranty, you're going to get a guaranteed product. If you don't do the post tension, there's a lot of different contractors out there. There's a lot of different qualities of concrete, and it's difficult to put them in a box. So we strongly recommend doing the post-tension courts for the amount of value that Wilmington has on these courts.
Thank you very much.
The old joke is in New England, there's two kinds of concrete: cracked concrete and concrete that hasn't cracked yet.
As is.
Last two.
Thank you, John.
Next.
13.
Yeah,
Did we take a vote on
Yeah, 13 was not an option.
All right.
Just, I came up with a few that didn't actually
Pan
take
out?
money, so I didn't include them.
Question?
We deemed it
that?
unlucky,
Take a
and we just.
vote on that, on the.
We just, yeah, we didn't go, we went with the, what was recommended.
What, do you want to go back to it?
No, I just want to make sure I didn't.
We thought everybody was okay with keeping it
Well,
post-tension.
then I interrupt you with a question. That's why I got off track.
We ready for 14?
Yep.
Okay. 14, these are for going inside the building, the bathrooms, just ceramic tile can add up in cost. One idea is you'd still have ceramic tile on the floor of the bathroom, and you'd have roughly a 4-inch base going around each bathroom, but then there would be what's called a fiberglass reinforced panel instead of the ceramic wainscot. So it'd be roughly 4 feet up on the wall. This would be a different product. It tends to be a lot cheaper than ceramic. It's a lot easier to install. So this is just a number of what that would total if you did that with all the bathrooms in the whole building.
It looks like stippled it looks like stippled plastic.
Yeah.
Used to. It used to look like stippled plastic. You might be familiar with it. It's that nubbly kind of stuff that you might see in like a 7-Eleven bathroom. However, this is the important part. When Alma and I were putting this together, well, actually Alma did all the work. When she was putting this together, we talked about imagery. Should we present like a picture of a tile versus a picture of FRP? And the reason there isn't a picture here is that the FRP that we're speccing out now for bathrooms and senior centers and multifamily housing for common areas, that is imprinted with a tile pattern. So either a 4x4 or a 3x3 square tile, which is what we used at a project in Cambridge, or even a running bond like subway style tile. So look, it's kind of like pre-stamped wall panel. It comes in 4x8 sheets, and
Remember
it's
the
glued to
panel
wall,
we used to
and it
have
looks
in the
very much
kitchen,
like
that
tile.
fiber
And in fact,
panel before,
it's a really good development of an otherwise well-tested product.
Right, and then we
They can
went with
save
the
a lot of
tile.
money. It's not tile. It's a slightly different animal, but it can be installed very well and can look very good, and it's a potential
That's
cost
long of the
savings.
tile.
But it's a different thing. So that's why you don't see a picture of it, because it would look the same and you'd be more confused.
Now, as far as cleaning, I'm thinking restrooms, wall ceramic tiles, it's gonna be easy to clean and maintain.
Actually, the FRP is used in professional kitchens because it's easier to clean.
Is there a seam?
It's 4x8
Yeah.
Every 8 feet, and it's caulked.
It's covered.
Caulked.
Oh.
Which looks great when it gets dirty.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about. You're gonna catch some dirt in there, but I'm in favor of the ceramic tile myself. It's personal opinion.
Is the fiberglass easier to clean because there's no grout?
Correct. And it's non-porous.
And there's a seam there, though, even though it's caulked. Is you have a caulking in between? Is there an H channel that it slides into and it catches all the dirt and stuff? You can't get in there, and
There's a few ways to do it. The details for it have gotten a lot better recently. where you have two panels that come together on the wall. That vertical seam can be caulked so it looks just like all of the other tile lines, no channel or anything. There's a cap on the top and there's a little trim at the bottom, and then on the outside corners. It's not exactly like tile. It's not quite like tile, but it's really, really quite good. And it's used in lots of applications that you might not even be aware of. Often in the back side of, like when there's a kitchen that's exposed to view.
Lee, how
it's
about
often used there.
durability as far as impact, you know?
Yeah, they're durable on impact. They don't dent. If they don't dent.
And they don't crack, so I'm thinking ceramic tile will crack and then,
Yeah, if you hit it hard enough, but the ceramic tile that you're gonna have installed in the walls is gonna be in a full mastic, so there shouldn't be any gaps behind it. But if you hit it with like a, you know,
Walker.
dumpster or something, yeah, it'll crack.
Honestly, I mean, you're spending $17 million, and you're dealing with every detail you can. You're gonna make the bathrooms plastic. I mean, that's it's your building. I'll put it in the budget, whatever you want.
I'm thinking go with what was spec'd, but that's my opinion.
I think we should keep the tile in, but be open-minded in DD and have you come in and show us the products, and we can make that decision in DD.
Absolutely.
You guys
I
okay with that?
appreciate that.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll give
We-
you half a
we
win.
wouldn't
I'll
throw-
give you a half a win on that one, Lee.
No, no worries. We wouldn't throw anything like this at you if we didn't have confidence in the product. So I'm happy to bring this back up again when we get closer to the time to make a decision.
Put in your house, Paul. So, right.
There we go. There we go.
$150,000 generator in my house either.
I only have one more.
Yep. And there's a few ones that I didn't get priced, but just a couple more ideas after this one that I'll run through quickly. This is for the fitness room, the wood gymnasium flooring. The total for if the wood gymnasium flooring was to go in was
Not even a question.
$31,392.
Wow.
Rubber flooring is another option. This is an idea of how much you could save if you switched it out.
Yeah.
Although it's beautiful now.
Wood floor in an old school lasts 100 years.
Still using our wooden floor.
Yep.
You're still using your wood floor now. For $10,000, you want to go with a rubber floor?
Keep it.
The wood.
Stay with wood.
Wood?
Wood.
Jeff, do you have a question?
I guess my
Make
only
sure you have
question
termite
would be in
protection.
terms of impact, if people are, I don't know, you know, you certainly see the rubberized floor in some of these fitness centers, don't you?
So this is a gymnasium floor. So the slab in this room is depressed, and there's rubber feet underneath the subfloor. So the floor gives,
Like high school.
like the high school. It's exactly like the high school gym floor. It gives when you walk on it.
Okay?
If they do dance class, it will move.
Yeah, this is a dance floor or an athletic floor. It's a sprung floor system. It's got a bunch of rubber marshmallows underneath it, and it floats above an airspace. So it's designed for exactly what you're going to use it for. But it's a complicated system and it's expensive, and so this is an option to go with something that's a little simpler.
So, George, I'm guessing the rubberized floor is going to be harder to keep clean, right?
Harder to keep clean, doesn't have the longevity of the hardwood floor. Over time, when after, I would guess maybe 5 years for the rubber flooring, 8 you're going to be getting rid of it, replacing it with new, where you screen and repoly the.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. Let's go with the wood.
I'm in favor of the wood on this one, but
I
Yeah.
agree.
So
Keep the wood.
Something to cut.
Number 15. Now we go to the bonus round, Norma.
this round.
Double points.
Oh, do you want to speak to these or shall I?
You can speak to them.
I threw these two slides in because at this point I wasn't sure where we were going to land on things, but I suspected you might want to know what the totals were. So these totals don't represent the decisions you made because we're not clairvoyant, but it's just an order of magnitude. So things that we decided we were going to add could have totaled up to 227, but right now it's just 180. And then these are the potential cost savings kind of all listed together, and like 3 and 4, we didn't go with, but you'd have to choose one or the other. So we came up with a total of 579,000 and a half to save, just as a kind of like, this is how much we put together for this presentation, and we'll do a sum up of where we land with your decisions as a result of this meeting. But this is I suspected this question might come up. I'm glad it hasn't, but that's where we are.
So I guess one of the things that I think is probably worth noting, and I don't know if this is quantifiable, but there's the immediate construction cost, which is identified here, but then there's the life cycle cost, right? So, we perhaps could have elected to take the 579,000 in cuts, but I suspect that would arguably be offset by higher life cycle costs.
No question about it on a lot of those.
Right.
The 25 years versus asphalt, clearly one of those. You might resurface the asphalt twice in 25 years.
Yeah.
So, that's no question, that's a savings right there. The wood floor, I'm with George all day long. I think you probably I'm not as pessimistic as George. I think you'll get about 10 years out of the rubber floor, but you're gonna get 50 years out of the wood floor. And, so you're gonna replace the rubber floor 5 times. So you start adding all of these up, that 500,000 in potential savings is gonna end up being millions in annualized upkeep.
I think you guys are really getting the gist of the old adage that cheap gets expensive. And I think you're making good decisions as far as the quality of the products, and from so far what we've discussed, you're staying very much true to the original intent of how you started off the design discussion. So I'm not pitching a fit. I think this is a very productive discussion.
Susan?
Just a quick comment too for.
Hold on,
and
John.
For anyone in the audience, when you look at so many of the towns out there right now, facing buildings that they have to deal with, whether it's rebuilding or refreshing buildings, many times it's because that maintenance stuff really hasn't been upkept. In Wilmington, I know they do a great job doing that, but there's a lot of towns that are really in trouble with multiple buildings. So it's not even just the cost of doing it, you have to actually do it to keep those things up and in good shape. And I think that's a consideration long after us.
Right.
If people really know and actively stay on that and do that type of maintenance, if it's required 5 times in the next so many years to keep that even going, we have to do it.
Right. And something like the hardwood floor that we're talking about, we have 6 gymnasiums here in this community that we maintain, and they're all hardwood. So, and I've been to all the other communities that do have the new rubber flooring, the Nora flooring, the different type, not to name any manufacturers, but I see the work that doesn't really go into it, how they look afterwards over a few years, the staining, the wear marks that are into it. It just, after a while, you're going to have to replace that, where we could screen and redo this. Rebecca?
I'm not a member, but I just want to point out, in my experience in senior living too, is the rubber floor is a trip hazard for sure. So especially with dance classes. So for what it's worth, I agree with you.
You have a dance
We did something
experience?
right tonight.
Well, we said at the very beginning
Yeah.
that we should be looking at
Life cycle costs.
exactly, and ease of maintenance and.
Well, I think this is a good exercise.
And I think that we are continuing to bring that through with all these decisions, that
Absolutely.
we want quality, and we wanted to decrease our maintenance costs and give us everything we want.
But I do think the exercise the designer did was a good exercise.
Absolutely.
Because I think it demonstrates that we are looking at the immediate costs. Unfortunately, some of these immediate costs come with long-term problems. And that's kind of not the direction that the town of Wilmington goes on their projects. You're not looking for the quick buck, you're looking for the long term.
The pickleball court is a perfect example of that.
Right.
Because I think now we all understand what the options are, and one clearly rose to the top. But at the very beginning, we were looking at it thinking, oh, this is crazy, this is so expensive, and
Right.
we've got to get another option, because this is a lot of money. But now we're seeing the value of that money. So,
It's clear to me that saving $500,000 now is gonna equal spending millions later, and it's the wrong kind of delta.
So, we added $112,547,000 to the revised budget, and the new budget is $17,241,722.
So, it went up.
Is that because of the generator?
That's adding the generator and taking out,
Okay.
That's 10.
taking out the brushed concrete.
So we just added 10,000 to your faulty math.
You did?
That's it.
Yeah, you added
To
10,000, you added 10,000 to my faulty math.
Nice.
You should see its minutes. Oh, you
We
have.
already took them.
We already took them.
You already took them. I figured, but I just had to say it because it was such a low hanging fruit that I felt good about us saying that.
30-some
So what was
students.
the
still
total?
don't- yeah, that was-
new budget is 17,241,000.
So,
Added the generator and
I
eliminated.
have a couple more
Oh,
items.
hold on, we have a question from the audience. Hold on.
Okay, first on the one floor, okay?
Yep.
Now, I'm aware that the gymnasium floor in the high school had to be totally replaced.
Yep.
Because of some sort of default, either construction or the type of flooring that was put in there. So what's the guarantee that that's not gonna happen with this type of work going there?
Oh, there is a guarantee that will come with that floor. There is a guarantee that will come with that floor when we put it in there. And that's what helped us replace that high school floor. We held it, the contractor at that time responsible, they came in and we have replaced that floor. I don't know if you've seen it since it's been redone. It's beautiful, looks good, and we did that, and that's gonna stand the time for the town too.
I wasn't on that project. You wouldn't have ripped it out if I was there.
We would've
Just
lived-
saying.
Would've lived with it.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the new total,
17,241,722. Now, that is subject to a small tweak here or there on, some soft costs I might have to add up, but the bottom line is, we're looking at, roughly 17.3.
that's from adding the generator, deleting
That's for adding a generator
a generator.
that will not do the entire building.
And deleting the BDA and the,
Deleting putting the BDA on the shelf. And, going with brushed finish on concrete.
That's the closest.
it is, if I'm just looking at the pictures, isn't that what Ludlow has, the brush concrete?
Yeah.
Alma, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
Sorry, Alma.
Yeah, I just have a couple more. We were sort of constantly in the past 2 weeks coming up with ideas, and all the ones you've seen so far are ones where I could get a number for it. And I just have two more that'll be quick, that are just throwing it out there, some other ideas I had of potential savings. Just noting that the concrete in general was really adding up as a big number. And I actually did a little exercise where I compared the price of gravel base, for example, that goes under asphalt or concrete, and compared it to what Ludlow cost in 2019, what their estimate was, and it's gone up exponentially. So I was sort of like, well, what could we do to reduce that particular item for this project? One thing I thought of was the walkway that's going around the entire site. Right now we have that as a concrete sidewalk. Just a thought that this could be asphalt instead, an asphalt, basically like a little asphalt road, pretty much. As you saw with the pickleball court, so that the asphalt number saved a lot. I would assume that changing the sidewalk to asphalt could potentially save a lot of money. I just wanted to throw that out there as an idea, if that's something that you would be open to.
Again, I think that's a DD item.
Yeah, I think so. I would ask the
I
question.
do think we should go down that path. I can tell you, John, we're not putting in polymer sand. You know, the compressed sand that's supposed to stick together. Every project we've done, that product that you were talking about, after it gets snow blowed, it's usually in the woods.
I would ask what type of curbing we're thinking about putting in there in this parking lot.
What do we have for curbs?
Granite.
Yeah, so
The
granite.
entire thing is not curved.
Right.
Okay.
Just the islands are curbed, right?
So I would say go through design development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to be honest with you, though. I mean, granite lasts for 100 years.
Yeah. Well, that's.
Yeah, I mean,
You
see it
want
on
to talk longevity,
Yeah.
and granite wins when it's the plow versus granite. Granite always wins.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how many
We need it
places I've
because of the
seen where we get.
stormwater control system that we're doing. On the project, we don't have the luxury of having a bulldoze situation where we can just dump it into.
Mhm.
You
Well, there's a
talk
lot
about
of
its compressed
differences between
granular.
Part of the thing that Amal was referring to is the stone base. The stone base that we're using on this is, I need to look at the details quick because I have the plans open, but in the situation that we're in right now, we have 18 inches of stone plus another 6 inches, so there's 24 inches of stone going beneath the parking lot, which is a lot of stone. That might become less based on the geotech.
Okay.
So we're in a sort of a worst case scenario where
Right.
the ground won't hold anything, it's plasticky. We did do test pits out there, but at this stage of design, it would have been disingenuous
To not carry it.
to not carry a very heavy section for that.
So there you go.
Along with that, we know that the groundwater table is very high out here, and it doesn't allow us to do the infiltration and lower cost stormwater management, which Ludlow benefited from, even though they added that back in at their own discretion, it didn't necessarily require it. Here, you don't have the option to start with. All of the water is gonna have to go into basically a big underground cistern and then slowly be leaked out to the town system. So we're converting a woods into a very impervious area, so there's a lot of cost here on the site side that we have to keep in mind. So the granite curbs are integral to that system. So going back and I've already gone through the process of removing curb where we didn't think we needed. So I don't, in my opinion, for your information, going back and trying to further reduce that there's not anything there. It's pretty skimped down as it is already.
I want to add one more thing to that. We have granite curbs up to the entry. I think we actually priced out concrete curbs in the parking areas, which might not be your intent, John, but it was a potential for cost savings as a part of the cost exercise. So we have granite curbing up until the entry, and then out in the parking lot where curbs happen, which is not everywhere, where they happen, they're concrete. So we've already pushed pretty hard on this.
Do we anticipate signalization out on 38?
I doubt it.
That's through.
I don't
the
think you'll
state.
meet the warrant. John, you don't think they'll meet the warrant for a signal there, do you?
I can't answer that. I'm not a
Traffic guy.
I'm not a traffic guy.
I don't
There's
think
a
so.
scope floating around though for us to do that.
No, we'll pass on that. I don't believe
But that's up to DOT, right?
it's up to Mass DOT. Unless the town controls that section, I don't think you do. It's a
So
state
DOT
numbered highway.
What if the DOT says we need to put a signal?
A signal there,
200.
450.
Well, so it wouldn't be as complicated. We just put a bid out on a signal at Shawshene and Lake Street, we budgeted 520, and it came in at 614.
There you go.
Yep, that's about right.
It's ridiculous.
So, just to get back to the topic at hand, if we may, we can investigate the walk, the loop during DD. Right now, in the budget, it's concrete, which is best practice. I chatted with John about this yesterday, and there are lots of reasons not to do an asphalt sidewalk. You've all experienced it if you've ever walked on an asphalt sidewalk. We'll dig into this more in DD when we get more numbers. So,
Good.
we have one more, I think, right?
Yes, sort of along the same lines. This was just a suggestion that there are a few extra parking spots, but if this area was
I don't want
reduced,
to cut parking
just
spots.
because
Nope.
the cost of base and
Yeah,
such
no.
are really
Nope.
adding up.
We need the parking.
That's a resounding no.
I didn't have anything to do with that, Lee. You're just throwing me under the bus like I'm
No.
fine.
That had John Hammer written all over it.
Yeah.
Away from the
No,
bonus
no,
round
no.
with no points.
I'm happy to throw you under the bus when you deserve it, John, but this was definitely not the case. I remember a discussion a long time ago we had about snow storage and extra parking spots, and
Yep.
I think you had said, you know, this is the number of extra parking spots we have based on the original
Okay.
156, and if any of them were to go, we could get rid of these and it wouldn't kill anything. So I went out on a limb. So it's
I will accept both wheels of the bus.
But I should point out, regardless, and I'm just giving John trouble, but regardless, Alma's absolutely right. The parking is expensive and there's a lot to it, and we still need a place to put snow. So this should be considered your snow storage area moving forward, and so you're not always going to get all the parking spots anyway. So just to introduce the concept again as we move into DD. But I hear that you want to keep all the parking.
I have a technical question for you, Lee.
Hmm.
So, the estimate from PM&C that we received before the last meeting was 14,883,000. The estimate I got tonight is 14,905,000. Why did it go up when we did?
I have a slide. So the additional amount, which it did end up going up a bit, we had taken the shade sail out in the last one that you saw, so that was added back in. That's in the back patio area. And then the wood gymnasium flooring, though it was in the narrative, it had never made it into the estimate, so I caught that and made sure that was added in. So those are two items that were added. And additional to that, there were a few items moved and sort of sent to the
Alright.
FF and
So
finishes.
we had some minor ups and downs
Yeah,
to balance
so
out.
like 5 or 6
Yep.
things moved around, and that's what that resulted in.
So I'll redo the budget sheet so that you have
Right.
the now agreed upon number. Do we want to meet again and go over the zip panel hybrid, or leave it as is, worst case scenario, so that we can start working with finance?
I mean, that, we're meeting on the 14th, right?
Up to you, I mean, all we're gonna talk about is that one item.
I would defer to you guys on that anyway, so.
I mean, if we carry the worst case scenario, deal with it in DD, that way he can nail down the number on this project. This project's off the table for finance, and they can start thinking about how they're gonna fund it. Your call.
We'll carry, well, it's a committee's call, it's not my call, yeah?
When I say you, I mean
Yeah.
plural.
I would say we carry for, that was the mineral wool on there.
Right,
Go with that, and then we could change it.
right. We'll carry the worst case scenario for now.
Right. That's my thought.
Did you get that, Lee?
Jeff, do you agree?
Yes.
Committee members?
All right, so I'll finalize this number and get it to everybody. Do you want me to put it in a different format so that Diane can? I mean, it kind of sounded like she didn't like my format.
Yeah, a little bit larger font too, might help, you know.
Or I can just break down by, totals, the 5 totals as opposed to all the individual line items. I was trying to be open and transparent. So,
Can I just ask one question? I'm just a little confused. So when it came to that generator, are we including that, or isn't that still a
so
question
the
that we're
generator,
gonna
we put
hold
in,
off?
we put in
Carrying,
a
okay.
generator.
Okay.
The generator right now, I believe, is carrying a portion of the building. What portion we'll deal with in DD, but certainly at a minimum, at
Again,
180,000,
DD is,
Design and
design development,
okay, sorry.
at a minimum, you've got lights and freezes right now,
life safety, fire alarms, stuff like
all
that.
that kind of stuff.
Maybe the dining room. area.
Maybe the air conditioning and the heating in the dining room, we'll cross that bridge. All right?
Yeah, so,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Perfect. Yep, okay.
All right?
There's just one comment that I want to add, and it's sort of sending a shot across the bow based on some experience we have on other projects, a lot of extensive experience with grass. During the original estimate we received, we got a price for a traditional approach to doing seeding and grass establishment. Because of the environmental situation that we're in with weather, not saying those words, favorite words, I asked them to increase the price from 25 cents per square foot to $1. And the reason for this, and I'm going to probably keep mentioning this throughout the project at the meetings, is that we require temporary irrigation during grass establishment in order to ensure that the lawn gets established regardless of permanent irrigation or not. At Ludlow, and Lee could probably confirm this, and so could Dan, we had a situation where that was in the contract, it wasn't happening, and I kept rejecting the grass for probably a year, I think it was, until they finally came out there and put water down on the grass to get it established. So when somebody looks at the grass number and is like, why is that so expensive? That is why it's so expensive. It is the number one thing other than the building that you see when it comes. Everything gets wound down. At the beginning, everybody's worried about the building, getting everything going. And then at the end, you see the trees, the grass, and the building. And if the grass isn't green, you will be coming back to me with a lot of questions asking why it isn't. So to ensure that that happens, I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that our specification requires temporary irrigation during the establishment, and we expect it to be done. And if I come out there and it's not happening, Dan's going to know about it.
I appreciate
My warranty's up, I'm already going.
Is that already included?
Appreciate that, John. Yeah, the committee didn't have a problem with that increase, and it was a good touch, so.
Is that cost already included?
Yes,
Yes.
So we're gonna have underground irrigation.
we don't have underground irrigation.
No?
No. We don't have that in any building in town.
Oh, really?
We do have it on fields, sports fields, but we do not have it as far as high school or.
I think what John is intimating is that the contractor and their landscaper own watering. Which is bottom line, they own watering.
To
That's
establish
correct.
a lawn.
There's no, irrigation isn't in there. It is specifically written as temporary irrigation is required until they hand it over to the town. And then after that, you have a full lawn, and whatever happens after that happens, but they owe you turning over grass, legit grass.
Good. Is that it, Lee?
Alma, anything else?
Everything for me?
That is what we had. Thank you very much for leading that presentation.
No problem.
In our next steps, as we were discussing, our next meeting's on the 14th. So,
I think on the 14th, we're going to start talking about outreach. And I know that we're going to be meeting as a community on the 7th, during the day. I think on the 7th during the day, right?
so we had it for.
I thought it was the 7th.
Are we in that?
What are we doing?
Department heads. Just, what's
Yeah.
the capacity of the TV? What's the capacity? How do we want to approach both projects? You know, what are we missing? What did we do wrong so far? That type of thing.
Right, we're meeting at 3.
Right.
o'clock.
3 o'clock on the 7th,
Is that in person or Zoom?
in person. Would you like it to be Zoom?
I have it Zoom.
Do you?
Doesn't matter. I mean, I'm here for 5 o'clock for the other meeting.
No,
Sorry, is that including us,
Oh.
or?
That's not us.
Okay.
That's the town, that's the.
We're gonna report to you on the 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a Zoom meeting, right, we
I'm gonna
have,
be here anyway.
yeah, you can meet up in my office
Yeah.
or something,
We'll figure it out.
okay? So we're still meeting on the 14th anyways,
Here, that's this meeting here on the 14th.
correct? That'll be a quick one, I would think.
Don't jinx it.
Right, any public,
Could you just clarify for us which, if any, meetings you would like the design team at and who?
We need them at the 14th?
I don't think so.
I don't think we need you yet. We'll start giving you dates on when we're having forums and coffees, and you can come out and do your thing.
I look forward to that, and I don't mean this in any way, but we're here when you need us, but until we hear from you, we won't bother you.
Well,
I
so
did-
one of the meetings we should give some thought to is the Finance Committee public hearing is the 18th, 19th of October.
October.
Yeah.
Right, so we should discuss whether we want to have Lee and his group there that night.
He should be at the finance committee. Both designers should be at the finance committee. Finance committee is October 18th. Right, 18th
Yeah.
or 19th?
No, it's the 18th,
18th.
Tuesday.
But I gotta put together the budget part of it. So, we're gonna be talking numbers, but if design questions come up, he's gonna be my back.
I can zoom in anytime.
Well,
That's what I mean by Zoom.
yeah, I know, you're gonna be in person for finance.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Lee, I got the display boards, thank you very much.
Oh, good.
I have them set out here at the town hall. We do have elections coming up. I will have them at both voting polls, so residents can see them for both projects. So,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
We're pretty close to getting the
Thank you
estimate
very
this
much,
week.
and thank you to Alma for putting those together. I think they came
Sixth.
out really, really well.
That's gonna be.
We did some last minute color touch up. Alma did a
Early
fantastic
voting's right
job
now.
matching up the visuals with red notes from here.
Really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna
They're a
give you
little
some to
different.
take to your, and we'll set them up at the senior center
okay.
library, and I do have some out in the town hall.
Thanks for
right
having me. It's always a
Okay.
pleasure to be
John,
here.
nice seeing you.
You guys, that was a great presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, public comment. Was there any?
Jim Buckley, 6 Barnwood Road. The only comment I have is to make, when this goes to the town meeting for $17 million or $18 million, neither one of those is a deal breaker. So I wouldn't make too many cuts. Get down to 17. I think I have to say.
Yeah, I think we were pretty clear on that tonight. We weren't making a lot
I
of.
mean, what's $1 million nowadays? $1 million bucks. No,
I mean,
it's nothing when you're building something like this.
Get it right
it's
the
still a
first
million.
time.
Yeah,
It's still a million.
Nickel's still a nickel, but
Yeah, doesn't buy anything, but it's still a nickel.
Virginia Wilson, 48 Grand Ave. When we were talking about the walkway, I was gonna ask what the surface of the parking is.
Asphalt.
So it would be, then if it would be made of asphalt, then everything would be asphalt.
Yeah, so you'd have asphalt, and then you'd have a grass strip, and then you'd have a walkway.
Okay. All right, and any other comments from the committee?
Good meeting.
Very good meeting.
I mean, all right, and then last item would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second motion.
Paul Millerani, motion, second, Jack Holloway, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.